How can Mercedes engineer stability? At some point in the next few seasons, Mercedes is likely to face a familiar problem. Two drivers in the same car, both capable of fighting for a championship. The conditions for internal competition are already in place. This isn't just a personality issue, it is a system design problem. We've already seen how this can go wrong. During their time together at Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg weren't just competing against the grid, they were competing inside the same structure. And that structure had weaknesses. The team allowed open competition with very few constraints. Both cars were managed through a shared strategy system, and both drivers had near total access to the same performance data. Individually, those decisions make sense, but together they create a tightly coupled system with no buffers, and that's what led to instability. Now, if you look at Russell and Antonelli from a technical perspective, the risk comes from how different their operating styles are likely to be. Russell tends to prioritize consistency. He works within stable, balanced conditions and manages tyres very precisely across a stint. Antonelli operates closer to the limit, more rotational entry, more aggressive inputs, and potentially higher peak pace. From an engineering standpoint, that creates two different optimization targets within the same car. And if those targets start pulling development in different directions, you introduce noise into the system. So the question becomes, how do you design the team to handle that? The first step is controlling competition. Instead of allowing unrestricted racing all season, you define rules that change depending on context. Early in the year, both drivers are free to race, and as the season develops, priority shifts based on championship position. For me, that's not about favoritism, it's about reducing unnecessary risk when the stakes increase. The second area is strategy. One of the biggest issues in past rivalries was having a single strategy group making decisions for both cars. A more robust approach is to run two parallel strategy models, one for each driver, with a shared validation layer to ensure fairness. That way, decisions are independent but still consistent at a system level. You reduce the perception and the reality of bias. Then, of course, there's the raw data. Full transparency sounds ideal, but in practice it creates convergence and tension. If both drivers are constantly comparing identical data sets, they tend to converge on similar setups and then compete in a very narrow operating window. A better approach is partial partitioning, shared understanding of the car's limits, but more isolation in how each driver reaches performance within those limits. Car development also plays a role. If one driver wants a stable rear and the other wants a sharper front end, you can't fully optimize for both with a single setup direction, so instead you design a car with a wider operating window. Keep the aerodynamic platform consistent, but allow flexibility through mechanical setup, differential settings, suspension, and balance tools. That way, both drivers can extract performance without forcing the car in conflicting directions. Finally, there's governance. Incidents between teammates shouldn't be handled reactively, they should be predefined. Clear rules on racing conduct, clear consequences for contact, and clear escalation if those rules are broken. At that point, you're not managing personalities, you're managing system behaviour. Even with all this in place, you can't eliminate rivalry. Championship pressure, qualifying gaps, and external narratives will always introduce instability, but you can control how much that instability affects performance. Mercedes has already experienced what happens when two championship-level drivers operate without enough structure. With Russell and Antonelli, the challenge isn't discovering the problem, it's whether they can engineer a system that prevents it from happening again.